it starts like this, with 8 notes. And we can, as with any music, you look at how it's made in order to know how to play it. So that's the first group. But that first group has 2 parts. It has a rising scale line, which I call S for scale. And then it has that scale. Where does it want to go? It certainly wants to go to the G. But it doesn't go directly to the G. It takes a detour. And then gets to the G. So we have S for scale and Z for zigzag, and then finally we reach our goal. Now, what the right hand does, the left hand answers, because the inventions are a little bit like fugues, although not precisely, but they're imitative. The voices imitate each other. So the first voice says, I really want to go to G. And the second voice says, I really want to go to G2. It answers. Now, when you go to something in music, it doesn't mean you have to make a crescendo to it or go to it as if you're slapping it in the face. You can actually go to something even with a diminuendo, as if you're being polite. Not punching in the face, but gesturing in a gentle way. But the left hand is a little bit more direct. And because it skips an octave, I always recommend detaching notes that have big skips in Bach, and for that matter, in lots of music. The big skip is like going from here to there, and you want to show that with articulation. So even this very simple opening can be lyrical. And after the S plus Z, we have 4 more notes, which I just call N because they're neighbor notes to each other. And then the whole thing starts again. We think it's going to be in G. But it stays in C major because we need to establish the key. The piece has just begun. We don't want to modulate yet. So now he takes this S plus Z figure, turns it upside down, and does it 4 times. 4 times. Now everybody knows that. I'm not telling you anything that any teacher doesn't know about this piece. It's very obvious that what the parts are: a rising fourth, a zigzag figure, and that this is up. That's the same thing turned upside down. The problem comes when deciding what to do with that knowledge. Well, I finally listened to a bunch of performances of this invention, and here's what one person decided to do with it. And so on. Well, in other words, every 16th note is in exactly its place so that the performance, the playing of the piece, is an exact realization of the notation. And one thing I think we all have to acknowledge, as much as we might wish it were otherwise, is that playing what we see is never enough, because there is no way that music can show inflection or slight elasticity of time. So this long string of 16ths, for example, since we know that that's the S plus C, is that too much rubato for anybody? Hold up your hand if it is. So we can actually hear what's going on. And while the right hand is doing that, Bach has taken the first four notes of his original idea and he's slowed it down, which we call augmentation. Does it a second time and a third time, except the third time he adds two more notes, so he becomes a little bit dramatic. Put them together. Now you remember the lower voice added two more notes to go to C, and just after that, the right hand reinforces that C with a big leap of a seventh. So that becomes a rather strong and intense place as we begin to move to the cadence. Ah, something is missing in that cadence. We're supposed to have. Bach leaves out that note, that last note, because he doesn't want it to be that final. Bach is usually starting something just as something else is ending. So he leaves out that note and it becomes the beginning of the next passage. So we arrive in G major. And then we start again in G. 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 Actually, we don't keep starting, we stay in G. So for two measures, we're just sort of wandering around in G with the original idea and the neighbor note idea in alternation. But after two measures of that, we figure we better go somewhere. So we have this modulatory sequence which becomes more and more dramatic and takes us to A minor. And at the peak of the drama, Bach does something very interesting, and it's very worth noticing that one of the ways he builds tension toward that A minor cadence